We just did a video where I ranked 8 of my favorite niche brands by taste, and I shared with you my top 3 fragrances for each brand. If you missed that video, why? It's not that serious, but if you have a reason, let me know down in the comments. I want to make videos you want to see. Help me help you. Today we're doing designer. I chose 8 designer brands. There's more I could have chosen, but I just stuck with 8 because that's what we did in the last video. So we're trying to keep continuity here. 8 designer brands that I do respect. At least there are certain offerings that I do respect because I'm choosing my top 3 favorites from each one. And there's a few caveats. First of all,
this is not easy to do.
To put these brands in order. And we're doing it by taste, which is kind of ridiculous because honestly, there's no one designer brand. There's no one brand period that does it all for me, that covers all the bases. That's the only brand I would choose for every fragrance I would ever wear from here on out. I'm just like you. I have a wide array of preferences and likes from different brands that kind of weave together to form the tapestry of my fragrance taste. But we're doing it for this video. Now, some of you brought to my attention a very interesting point in regards to comparing fragrance houses that I've had experience with for different periods of time. The houses that made my wear-based video, if you missed that one, check it out here, are houses that I've had in my collection for many years. So obviously they've had most of my wearings in comparison to some houses that I've been exposed to later in my journey. There are many of you who asked about many of the houses that will be in this video because they have been recent mainstays in my collection. So this video is about my current taste in fragrances. Let's jump right into it. Now, once again, I cannot stress enough how tough this was because a lot of the fragrances I might choose from these houses are done intuitively. When I'm deciding what I want to wear for the day, I'm looking at my collection. Intuition is kind of guiding me towards the houses that I'm interested in. And these are the ones that usually come to mind first. If I'm going to wear something else, I have to kind of put them aside and select something I may not normally wear. So first up is the house of Chanel. Chanel's a classic house. It's a house I do respect. There's offerings that I've enjoyed from them. There's many offerings I have yet to try, especially in their exclusive line. So you're not going to see any of those here. But all in all, they're not my absolute favorite. That's why they're here at number 8. And that's because as far as their male marketed mainstream collection, we have Bleu de Chanel. That's what we've had for over 10 years now. In all its concentrations, we're ready for more. It's probably going to be Bleu de Chanel Elixir, let's be real. But my third favorite fragrance out of the only 3 that I actually own from this brand is Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme. Now, this is by default because again, I only have 3. I wanted to have 3 or more fragrances from each brand in this lineup to be included in this list. But in this case, I knew I couldn't leave out Chanel because some of you guys would be at my doorstep with pitchforks, wondering why I would leave such a classic powerhouse brand out of the video. And Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme is not one of my favorite fragrances. I don't care for it. I think it's nice. It's boring to me after about 30 minutes. My wife actually doesn't even like it when I wear it. To her, it smells very synthetic. And I can see where she's coming from. Again, not a bad fragrance. I can see it being a compliment getter, but I want to wear stuff that I enjoy. I'm not wearing it just to have other people approve of my taste. I think that's kind of sad, but it's here at number 3. It's fine. At number 2 is Allure Homme Edition Blanche. Now, this is a fragrance I really do enjoy. I love it during the summertime, but maybe more for those milder summer days, even maybe more towards the evening. It's this creamy, lemony, fresh, sweet, musky fragrance that just smells very uplifting, but it does have a certain elegance to it that I just think is really enjoyable. And my number 1 is Bleu de Chanel Parfum. I have owned the other 2 editions over the years, starting with the Eau de Toilette. I wore that a lot. I got rid of it because I got bored with it. Then I got the Eau de Parfum. I wore that quite a bit, got bored with it, but I did like it more than the Eau de Toilette. And so far, to my taste, the Parfum is my favorite. It is the superior version. It is the most refined version. Maybe not the most versatile, but as far as who I am, my personality, the energy I like to bring into a space with a fragrance DNA like that, the Parfum is what does it for me. Fresh, kind of blue, almost shower gel, woody, but there is a certain darkness and a richness to the scent that just makes it smell more put together, more sophisticated, and the quality is fantastic. Moving on to the house of YSL. Now, I don't care at all about YSL's current offerings. I have several from the house. I have YEDT, I have YEDP, neither one of those are my favorites. I have La Nuit de l'Homme Eau Électrique, don't really care for it, it's fine, I like it better than those other two. I have smelled the Bleu Électrique, but don't need that because it's redundant to my collection, especially in regards to one of my favorites I already have. But my top three stand at currently L'Homme. Number three is L'Homme, and that is a very special fragrance to me. It was the first designer love, I guess I could say, I had when I first smelled it in stores many years ago. It was an immediate love at first sniff. I had to have it, and I've loved it ever since. I don't really wear it that much anymore because it doesn't move me, but for nostalgic reasons, it brings me back. It has a deep connection to me. It's very easy to wear. It's very pleasant. I actually wore it not that long ago, within the last couple months, and I really enjoyed it. Kind of fresh and gingery, a sweet, creamy tonka bean, a little bit of a dry woodiness in there. It does have a very handsome smell without being overpowering. It's confident without screaming, and I love that. Number two, L'Homme Ultime, one of the absolute best flankers in the collection, if you're asking me, maybe the best. A unique take on rose, fresh, spicy, woody rose. Rose, maybe some ginger I think is still left over. You have cedar wood. That L'Homme DNA is still there, that kind of creamy smoothness that's a little sweet. But the Ultime flanker has more of an identity. It has an even stronger face to it with stronger features that make it stand out as something even more special. And number one, in terms of scent, when I smell this, it still gets to me after all these years. La Nuit de l'Homme. It's sweeter, it's more fresh spicy, there's a more alluring quality to it, definitely darker, almost like vanilla cakey in a way, but not outright gourmand or anything like that. It is just seductive and attractive, and I love to wear it during the fall on a night out when it's more casual. Let's talk about Gucci. Now, if you had asked me 5-6 years ago if Gucci was a house I cared about,
not really.
I didn't really love the direction they were going, albeit they had one fragrance that I found interesting, but it wasn't to my taste when I first tried it. I do have that fragrance now, and it is in this lineup. Now I like the direction they're going in. They are taking risks, they are taking chances. I don't know if all the chances are paying off, but I appreciate them standing out, making an effort to uphold artistry, because that's what perfume brands are supposed to do. So number three from Gucci for me is going to be Guilty Eau de Parfum. A fragrance that I almost wrote off. No, let's be real. I wrote it off when I first smelled it, and I did blind buy it based off of a few recommendations from you guys. And I'm not putting that on you. It was my choice. And when I first smelled it, it reminded me of the original Gucci Guilty, which I don't really care for. It's a mall scent to me in the truest sense, but they've taken that vibe and they've made it more nuanced. They've added some unique and intriguing elements like salt, like balsamic vinegar, added some rose in there that up close, you can tell there's something different there. It is a little bit unusual, but in the air, it still comes across as very easy to wear, easy to like. There is an alluring element to it. It is something I would wear on a night out. It does smell masculine in a modern, sweet way, maybe borderline juvenile, but not all the way there. I respect it. Number two is going to be Intense Oud. That is the fragrance that I did smell years ago that I found intriguing, but it wasn't to my taste. It is discontinued here in North America. Some of you guys really railed into me.
It's not discontinued in Europe.
Good for you. But I got mine from fragrancebuy.ca. I always wanted to revisit this stuff, and it is a very special fragrance for being a designer fragrance. It's not one that everyone's gonna love. It is a pretty strong, sweet, dark, smoky incense and oud. Some people say it smells kind of like an old man in a way. I don't really get that vibe at all, but it is particular and it is quite elegant. It's something I would say for the cooler weather for the evening time, and I don't spray much of it, maybe 2 to 3 sprays. But I think it is a special one from the house right at the cusp of when they kind of started changing directions. And my number one that came just the year after Intense Oud is Guilty Absolute Pour Homme. Definitely not for everyone. I totally get that. Dark, woody, slightly smoky, leathery, medicinal smelling fragrance that just smells authoritative. It smells very confident, very intentional, but not mass appealing by any means. This is not a fragrance you wear to make people like you. This is a fragrance you wear to make people remember you, and that's going to happen way better if you don't spray too much, because otherwise it smells like you're covered in band-aids. You don't want that. But in moderation, I cannot get enough of this stuff. It is intoxicating in the strangest way, but if you don't like it, I understand. Let's talk about Guerlain. Now, I know even the mention of that name has some of your heart rates already increasing. I see your thumbs already going to type a comment correcting me to say that
Guerlain is not a designer house.
And to that, I want to say this. I believe that Guerlain is a designer house today, but with artisanal roots. Over the past couple hundreds of years, the brand has expanded from producing bespoke perfume products, as well as basic hygiene products, into an artistic perfume house that also has major presence in the cosmetics and beauty world. With their skincare, with their makeup, and even spas. That's cool. They were acquired by LVMH back in 1994, and as a result, they joined a host of almost 20 other brands under the LVMH umbrella. And all of those brands produce perfumes in addition to other goods. So that is my explanation. If you have another explanation you'd like to offer, let's talk about it. Anyway, my top 3 from Guerlain currently sit at number 3, Bois Mysterieux. This is a special one. I first smelled this fragrance at Disneyland, at a perfumery in Disneyland years ago, and I immediately found it almost repulsive, but intoxicating in a strange way. I couldn't stop smelling it. I found it so different, strong in personality, and so interesting. I knew I wanted to come back to it later. I finally got myself a bottle from Fragrance Buy. I bought it recently, and it is just as heavy hitting as I remember. This is a sharp, woody leather fragrance with some aromatic camphorous elements, almost like dark, smoky, tarry, but in a fresh way, if you can imagine that. It's not a fragrance I want to spray a lot of. I might do 3 sprays max, honestly, and it gives me just this nice, sharp, brash, but elegant, leathery bubble that just smells luxurious. Number 2 is L'Homme Ideal Cologne, unfortunately discontinued, has kind of been revived in the L'Homme Ideal Platon Privé, which I have not smelled yet. I hear it's as close as you can probably get, but not exactly the same, and I hear that many people prefer the cologne, but taste will always vary. I love the cologne. It was my first entry into the collection. It was a total accident. I was actually trying to buy the original EDT from an eBay seller, and they sent me the cologne. I was going to return it until I sprayed it and realized this is freaking beautiful. Creamy, sweet, uplifting grapefruit that almost comes off lemony, a little bit fizzy and spicy with some pink pepper, a little bit of a woody base, and definitely has that creamy bitter almond that is characteristic of the line. This is a perfect, elegant summertime day fragrance that I don't spray a ton of these days, but on a nice semi-casual day out, maybe going to lunch or something, it's too perfect. And number 1 is still L'Homme Ideal Intense. Some people will say extreme, some people will say the Eau de Parfum. Both are great. I have them both, but the Intense still edges it out for me. It's dark smokiness with that very intense chili pepper spice, and it still has the creamy, sweet cherry vibe with that bitter almond with maybe a leathery base in there. It is more nighttime elegant with a little bit of a bad boy vibe. Let's talk about Hermès. There's a lot I love about Hermès. I appreciate them as a brand. They uphold their heritage, and that is not a common thing in the designer world today. Number 3 for me is Voyage Parfum. I remember smelling this in a Sephora many years ago when it was still on shelves and finding it utterly detestable. It was disgusting to me. I had to throw out the blotter right away. But I knew I would like it more once I started to come around to fragrances like Déclaration from Cartier, which was made by the same perfumer, and they're known to actually be pretty similar. I can corroborate that. So I came back to Voyage d'Hermès Parfum, and I love this stuff. This fragrance actually kind of works all year round. Maybe not my go-to pick in the wintertime based on the scent personality, but it's a great fall scent. It's also a great summer night scent and perfect for the spring. It is a fresh, spicy, green, woody fragrance. Definitely smells a little bit more sophisticated. Not going to be for the younger guy out there. But I also love that it has a warm, spicy element to it that makes it perfect for evening wear when you want to be a little bit more classy, but still slightly on the fresher side. Number 2, Terre d'Hermès Eau Givrée. Man, this is one of the best flankers to come out of any designer house in the past couple of years. I love how cooling and refreshing this fragrance is. It is literally icy. It does kind of lower the air temperature around you when you spray it. It is so uplifting. This is a perfect high heat fragrance to wear on summer days that still carries some class to it because of its bitterness. And especially with heat, that bitterness becomes even more bitter. And that's what makes it smell a little bit more sophisticated. And number 1, Terre d'Hermès Parfum. It was between this and the EDT for me. I love the EDT, but the Parfum is simply a more refined version of it. It might even be a slightly more likable version of it, at least for the wearer. For those of you who are put off by the original EDT, maybe you find it too sharp, too old manish, too dirty, whatever you want to say. The Parfum is a more rounded, more refined version. As I said, it wears less sharp, it wears warmer, but it still carries that bitter, woody vetiver, a little bit of that slightly juicy citrus, some spice, but again, just smooth and very gentlemanly. Let's talk about Dior. I know you guys would expect Dior, and I do like Dior. I do have quite a few offerings from them. It was hard to choose my top 3, and some of you might be put off, but maybe some of you have already been put off, wondering why certain fragrances you love I haven't mentioned. Welcome to the world of subjective taste. At number 3, we have Homme 2011. If you're in North America, good luck finding this fragrance. It is now marketed under the Dior Homme original name, which they've just made the whole collection very confusing by introducing the new Homme in 2020, but keeping the old one, but calling it original. But the two smell nothing alike. You know what I'm saying. But I'm not mad. I like the direction they're going in, but there is a touch of lament for where they're coming from, because when Dior came out with Dior Homme in 2005, it was a game changer. It set a new course for what a men's mainstream fragrance is. No one ever really saw a guy smelling like waxy, powdery iris with a sweet chocolatey leather base. But that's what this is, a little bit of a freshness from lavender. Incredible fragrance that is utterly timeless and a masterpiece. At the second spot is Dior Homme 2020. Hard to choose between these two as my top 3 and 2, but 2020 is a fragrance I just wear more of. I've actually worn it almost the most out of every designer fragrance I own. It's not a fragrance that I would consider inspiring or moving. I even tried to hate it when I first smelled it, but there's something about it I could not get away from. It has this very simple but not basic vibe, citrusy, musky, woody, a little bit resinous in a fresh way. There's something about it that is undeniably masculine and also undeniably Dior. It smells Dior and it is so versatile. I love the feeling I get when I wear it. And number 1, I have to go with Savauge Elixir. Savauge Elixir is an utter upgrade to a collection that has gone on for too long. The Savauge line, we've stretched it out beyond stretchtivity, but Elixir, if this is the last one, is a perfect culmination, a perfect end to the collection, a darker, more sophisticated and mature version of the line, and definitely one of the strongest fragrances you can buy from any designer brand. It is almost barbershop-like, kind of old school feeling, fresh, spicy, rich, a little bit sweet and creamy, but has some warm ambery elements, some woody elements. It just hangs in the air. It has this very strong and elegant sillage to it, but it does smell undeniably modern. I love Savauge Elixir. It's perfect, especially for the fall. I'll be getting some more wear out of it this season. At number 2, Tom Ford. I do get a lot of questions about Tom Ford, people saying they're confused, thinking that Tom Ford is a niche brand. Technically, no, Tom Ford is not a niche brand. Their products range from clothing to cosmetics, sunglasses, and they also make fragrances, but a lot of their fragrances, especially in their private blend line, have more niche sensibilities to them. They're not your everyday mall scent type of fragrances. So I see where you're coming from, but as a brand, Tom Ford is indeed designer. And my top 3 happen to be from the private blend. Number 3 is Tobacco Oud, unfortunately discontinued. I've heard rumors it could come back, but I've been hearing that for years, so who knows. But this is a dark, spicy, boozy, slightly smoky tobacco, a little bit sweet, very elegant. I thought I was gonna hate it when I first smelled it, but I loved it immediately, although it is not my go-to scent profile for most occasions. I have to be in the mood for it. If not, it might wear me, but it is such a special scent profile. Let me know if you dig Tobacco Oud. Number 2, Ébenè Fumé. This fragrance has risen the ranks very quickly to be one of my favorites. This is Palo Santo wood, kind of a smoky, dry Palo Santo woody base with sweet ambery resins that kind of fill it out and come out more as it dries. There's some violet leaf freshness at the top when you first spray it. That might turn some people off. It is a very odd type of metallic freshness, but I think it lends a very unique opening to a scent. Yes, the fragrance is very similar to Bois Mysterieux, which is also now available. It was discontinued. They brought it back. They're very, very similar. Same goes with the brand new Bleu that also smells like it's in that vein. All those fragrances are in the same collection and they all kind of smell the same, which is a weird thing with subtle variations. But of the three, Ébenè Fumé is my favorite. It is a vibe and I love it when I wear it in the evening times during the fall and winter. And my number one is one I've been getting more and more wear out of this year. I just got it this year in 2023 and it has quickly become, obviously as you can see, my favorite from the house, that is Fougère d'Argent. This is a barbershop style fougère, pays homage to this older genre of fragrances, very characteristically masculine, has a cleanliness to it, has a sophisticated quality, gentlemanly if you will, but a little bit more stripped down, a little bit more simple. As a result, has more focus. There is this warm, cozy spiciness that's a little sweet and kind of alluring. Maybe not the most natural smelling, but in the air, that fresh, spicy, cozy, woody sweetness that I get that is very smooth. Yes, it does smell gentlemanly. It smells put together, but there is something kind of sexy about it. And the vibe I get, and I get it all day long when I wear it, is irresistible. And yes, many of you saw this coming. My favorite house right now, Cartier. Cartier is a brand with a lot of heritage and it comes through in all of their releases. I get a lot of weird remarks when I show some of their bottles on camera, especially the Pasha bottles. Some people seem to find them looking odd. I get it. They do look a little odd, but if you know the history behind them, it makes sense. Obviously, many of you know that Cartier is known for their watches, even more so than their perfumes, and each one of their fragrances is generally modeled and inspired by one of their classic watch designs. The Pasha is a watch, and if you look at its crown, what do you see? Ta-da! Same goes for the Roadster and some of the other fragrances in the line. My third spot currently is one of the newest from the house, Pasha Noir Absolu. Yes, it's brand new to me, but I've worn it a couple times and it's quickly become one of my favorites as per my taste. Dark, smoky, almost burning sweet caramel. Very elegant, kind of almost delicious smelling, but more dark and mysterious than delicious, I would say. It wears light, but it lasts a long time. A beautiful fragrance for a night out when you want to kind of look like the bottle, dressed in black, ready to impress. Number two is its predecessor, Pasha Parfum, the previous flanker in the line. This is a favorite. This has really kind of put Cartier back on the map here in the online fragrance community. When I first got that, it blew me away. I've been talking about it for years ever since, and I think a lot of you have checked it out either from my recommendation or from someone else's and have shared the same experience. It is a beautifully elegant fragrance for men. It does have a little bit of that barbershop quality from the original Pasha left over, but it's less fresh and spicy. It's more warm, it's boozy, it's resinous, it's sweet. It just smells very handsome, but more evening oriented than the original Pasha EDT. And my number one is hard to find. I believe it's discontinued and it's not going to be everyone's favorite, but it's Déclaration d'un Soir. That stuff is so beautiful. Rose, black pepper, woods. It is fresh. It does have a slightly sweet, fresh rose, spicy black pepper. There's something about it that is undeniably masculine, although it is rose forward. So for those guys who are afraid of rose or put off by it, this is one that I think you can easily pull off, especially for a more romantic night out with your date or wife, significant other, whatever it may be. It is rose that smells like a man. If you want that, you'll find it in Déclaration d'un Soir. I do recommend finding a sample if you can. I will link to whatever I can find down below for it, as well as every fragrance that I've talked about thus far. Well, that's it. What a sprint to the finish. 24 fragrances, 8 brands, ranked in the order of my taste. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I had a ton of fun filming it, and let me know what you think down in the comments. Also, give me a like again if you really enjoyed it, and there's going to be links to every fragrance discussed down in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.